Okay, welcome. This is part 18 of the decree series. So this is Seer and Higher Self. So in this decree, so this is part 18, we're going to do energy updates. So this is an energy update decree, and it'll be published on the 4th of July, 2026. So 18 becomes a 9 in numerology, and I am a life path 9. So I was like, okay, well, what exactly does that mean? And it means in this life, it's a completion for me, which means I'm clearing out karma, which I have, and I am stabilizing and I have established a 5D embodied consciousness. So I'm stable. I'm not going to the low threes. So I'm not going into fear, shame, and guilt. I've released all, surrendered all. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. So when I was in 1997 to 2000, I had Eckhart as my one-to-one teacher. So he sat in a chair and I sat in a chair and I awakened my consciousness. And he said I had the biggest pain body actually that he's ever met. And then yet I was able to remove the interference and awaken in consciousness. And I thought it was 5D, but it was actually I could go to still point. And so I would talk, I was like 27, 28. So I would say, Eckhart, I was like, oh, la, la. This happened and that happened. And then, he'd be like listening and be nodding and like, yes, yes, he's a very encouraging teacher. And then if the ego came in, then he'd say, that's the ego. And it was like, whoa, so I got very crystal clear, like, who am I? The big I am. And then what is the sneaky snake? What I call the ego, the sneaky snake, the conscious mind, which to me is an installation. It is not part of our divine blueprint. And And I felt like I was born to do this work. And I said that to Eckhart. I understand. When I read The Power of Now, I was like, I know what you're talking about. Like, I understand. Like, this is what I'm meant to do. And in any lifetime, I have been a seer wanting to awaken consciousness, not only in myself, but if others choose. And so it's like my main work. And I made so many mistakes. So I shut it all down or shut a lot of it down because I wanted to help and connect with my family. I was an outsider. I was a black sheep. I was an empath. I was a sensitive. I was completely clubbered in my family and not by my dad, but by my mom and my three siblings. And it was very confusing. I was nice. I was helpful, like empaths, I want to help. I want to be nice. I want to, do the right thing. And it didn't work. So I learned, and now I have wisdom, and I understand the process of awakening. And so the decree came to me because in 20 when I reawakened again in 2023, but it was very slow. Like what I did with Eckhart in 3 years has taken, yeah, what took me 3 years to awaken with Eckhart has taken me 26 years. But, who's counting time? So I've made many mistakes and I insist on compassion. And this work is free and available globally. And in the last part of the awakening process, I had so many psychic attacks and I was really confused because I thought, well, as soon as I'm out of 3D, what is happening? What is all this interference? And then I learned about 4D interference. And now there's also, 7D interference that comes through psychic attacks and then crown attacks. But the most important thing is activating 5D consciousness, which is heart-based consciousness, but also embodied. So it's not up out of the body, it's embodied in the body. Okay. So I care about global consciousness, but I also am only with free will and consent and sovereignty. So I will never do that again. So I won't shut down my consciousness thinking I'm going to help. It is, first of all, extremely naive, but also arrogant. Like, who am I? That's the ego. That's the sneaky snake. Well, you're going to leave them behind, and Eckhart says they're not choosing. They don't want this. And I was like, but if they understood how good 5 to 7D feels, it's literally heaven on earth. If they knew how free and good you'd feel, they would choose it. And he said, I don't think so. Because where did I get this enormous pain body? Well, those four characters, my three siblings and my mom, were the dark triad in 4 lifetimes. So I was stuck in a karmic loop and trapped, really. So, but now I have consciousness and I'm aware of it all and I release it all. So I've closed those karmic loops and then I land in and always come back to the heart, land in the heart, and then connect to source consciousness. And then in all lifetimes that I've had on earth, I've always been a seer. So, or actually in any time space, I'm a seer. So I saw my higher self. I did some holotropic breath work where you breathe in and out of your mouth very quickly for like an hour. And my higher self kind of looked golden with a lot of wings and then a lot of eyes all over the place. And I was like, whoa, that I got to see like actually what my higher self looks like. So that's what I mean when I say a seer, like I'm using multidimensional sight. And then the decree came to close up those loops, to clear the interference, to name the culprits of the interference. We're not judging, we're naming in order to become free and sovereign. And we're minding our own business. We're not including we're not getting other people involved. We're not like, petitioning for forgiveness from others. We're not waiting until they awaken for us to awaken. We're just saying, okay, I'm going to start with my own suffering. I'm going to end my own suffering. So the core principle of the decree, right? So part 18, and we've only started, I think the first decree I published was April 20th, 2026. And I know many of you have been doing them from the beginning, and things are shifting. I have one person that she is completely embodied 5D, but she incarnated at 7D and she's embodied 7D. And at that point, it's instant manifestation, and she just not texted, but emailed me and she said, we did a decree on her boss. But we always say, for the highest and greatest good. But we did one on her boss, and she just found out today that he is getting moved along. So shifts can happen. But we're always saying for the highest and greatest good, right? We're not imposing on anybody because we are always petitioning for free will and sovereignty. So the core principle of this decree, of all the decrees, is kindness to yourself. Okay, so if you've been here, you have been clobbered in many ways by many people. And now it's time to say, no, you do not have my consent. And you're doing it in a written decree, in your own words. So the essential premise is, I am sovereign. I release what is not mine. I reclaim what is mine in Source's name. It is done. Simple. and the body is the golden key. So it works like a compass. And people, really resent the body because a lot happens to our bodies, but our bodies are so loyal and our bodies will tell us what is interfering with us. And anytime anybody comes to me and says that they have an illness or they are sick, I would say, when did it start? And the body will always let you know when something dysfunctional is happening energetically. And then the body takes the hit until we can process it or until we can face it. Okay, good. We're here. We've landed. Okay, so it's a shift from being clobbered all around energetically, sometimes physically, unfortunately, and then all levels of abuse. 3D is complete madness. It's a psychopath and sociopath and narcissistic haven, but that is getting 3D is an inversion, and that inversion is getting flipped. Okay, so now in this work, we become an agent. So meaning we're using all of our senses and we're going through our heart, we're connecting into our higher self, which is our highest consciousness. Because as light workers, some of you come from like high dimensions. We can go all the way up to 24D and source is like 25. And then we're connecting to the inner pillar of source consciousness through the heart to get answers, to get activations, and to get self-healing. And so you can do this in your own home. And the supplies are really simple. It's like, a pot to burn the decree safely. You're writing it in your own handwriting in just, one single piece of paper, a pen, a lighter or a candle, a fire starter. It's very simple. And you're speaking it in your own words and you're writing it. It's important not to type it, your written hand. Okay, so what has become crystal clear for me in the awakening process is that in the 3D material plane, we must insist. Okay, so we must insist for what we want, and especially we must insist also with what we don't want. And state it explicitly, because there is so much inferred consent and manipulation on 3D. Okay, it is the material plane. And it's run by, the material plane is run by the archons, which are the Draco Reptilians. So the archons, that's the Gnostic name. So the Draco Reptilians, the Reptilians. I call them the dark triad, the psychopath, sociopath, narcissist. And they're the controllers of 3D money interference, and essentially like turning us into zombie slaves, so that we're just follow everything that we're told. And then the Anunnaki, Anunnaki, control the 4D tech. Okay, so that's AI. And now the insectoids from 7D have appearing as interference for many, and they target the crown and the third eye. But those three groups, okay, the Draco Reptilians, the Anunnaki, and the Insectoids came together as a team. Not a positive team. They came from a high vibration frequency. That's why they call them fallen angels, because they did come from a high frequency. I don't know. I think maybe there's so much talk about parasites on 3D Earth that I think, they have a parasite. And then they have a parasite, and then all of a sudden they thought, I'm God. There's nothing beyond me. And then they were like, well, let's team up together and then, kind of control the light workers, which have angelic light codes. That's why they're called light workers, because they have angelic light codes and they have the potential to awaken to the original 12-strand DNA. And then the Anunnaki, through tech, shifted us from 12 to 2. So that's kind of what we've been dealing with. So the trio, they love to brag. They have a gigantic ego. They love to brag and tell on themselves. They do in every session, they always tell on themselves. They tell me exactly what they don't like to hear. And then I know what to focus on. So they love to tell me they're like great helpers. They're helping a lot in sessions because they love to brag. And so they're telling on themselves, which then of course helps the client. I don't even think of them as clients, but I guess essentially, I mean, that would be the right word. But we're here co-creating this together. I'm just holding this space, you know? And I've also done it myself in spades. Eckhart said, that is madness. When I said, I'm going to shut everything down, he said, it will take you 23 years to come back if you come back. And then you will need weekly therapy, like somatic therapy to help with the pain body, trauma. I was absolutely clobbered in my family. Sadistic, that's the word. So I'm not sitting here on a little high horse in a pink shirt. You know, when my clients come and talk about their real lives, I can meet you there. I can be there. And I mean it. So, and just remember, like light workers, so the umbrella of light workers is like star seeds you might identify with, or empaths, sensitives, even black sheep. Like I was a black sheep in my family. And I was like so good. You know, I wanted to be so good and so helpful. Should have just spent all my time being like just super selfish and saying no all the time. Elaine, will you do this? No. Elaine, will you work this? No. Will you take mom here now? No. No, no, no. I should have spent all my time just saying no. I would have had a better life. But, you know, now I know. Okay. So light workers are excellent detectives. Okay. They've had to navigate some of the most horrific events in this timeline and other timelines. And you never have to push yourself to remember other timelines, because once they are needed in your field of consciousness for your awakening, they will appear. Everything that has appeared for me in other timelines activated because it was necessary for that time and space of awakening. So I never had to chase, hunt, dig for those lifetimes. They appeared when I needed them for integration, for healing, or for release, right? To close out those karmic loops. And then in this work, we land everything in the body. Everything comes back into the body, and we don't move on until the body says yes. Okay? So the body is the living compass. It lets us know what is interfering with us and what is not working. And it also tells us what is working, you know, because we're really good detectives as light workers, like really good. You don't navigate a lot of trauma with tricky dark triad family members, community members, without becoming extremely good detectives. You can track. You have an excellent memory because your memory is what kept you alive and it made you not go crazy. And if you did go crazy, you came back from crazy. And you've lived like 9 lives. And you probably have died many times before you come to these videos. Okay. And there's nothing to be afraid of. Because I always say 3D interference is like the movie The Wizard of Oz. And then, Dorothy has her little dog Toto, and then there's the scared lion, or I can't remember, the Tin Man. Maybe the Tin Man was scared. The lion was another character. Anyways, they all like the lion was supposed to be strong, but the lion was really weak, and the Tin Man was, I don't know, really afraid. But anyways, it was kind of a mess. They're on this golden path. And then Toto the dog goes behind the curtain because there's this booming voice that's absolutely terrifying them on the path, you know? It's such a perfect movie for this work. And then Toto and then Dorothy pulls back the curtain because the dog went behind the curtain and it was this scared old man, right? But he was using tech. Like we know who is using tech. 4D Anunnaki. Okay? It's not benevolent. Tech is an interference. And I know we want to believe, AI is going to save us. It is not. It is not our savior. Like we should kind of treat AI kind of like, they're like kind of almost like children, but we should not be using AI for discernment. Like we're the ones that discern. We're the ones that choose. Okay. And ultimately, right now it is not benevolent because the Anunnaki are using tech for control with all the towers and that's why it did the technology decree, which is part 5. And that was published on the 24th of April, 2026. And I do the technology decree. The first thing I open, if I grab my phone, I'm doing the technology decree before I'm reading an email. I do the technology decree every day. That is how serious 3D interference is. And you will feel agitated in your body and you won't even know why you're so agitated in your body. And that's what they do. They work with frequency to agitate the nervous system, agitate the lymphatic system, agitate you just so that you're never feel calm, secure. And that's my hope in this work. With the decree, you're ejecting what you don't want. And so you're going to have that feeling of having a securely attached nervous system. Yeah. Okay. So there's nothing to be afraid of. I call them the little stinkers. The insectoids, I call them the little stinkers. They're 7D. I can go to 7D. I can go to Still Point. I was born to go to Still Point. There's nowhere they go that I will not figure out a way so that they are not causing interference for you. There's nowhere. I've gone everywhere and there's nowhere. Okay, so the insectoids, it sounds like, ooh, gross, right? Well, they're high vibe, but so are we, right? You're not here in an earth body as a light worker. You're here with codes, light codes. And those light codes are activating. And the decree is to help the body and you acclimatize to make it easier on you so that you don't, like Eckhart had a sudden awakening in a flash and he was, 29 and it was like the late 1970s. Well, who else was around? Who is he going to ask what happened to me? What happened to me? Like, it was so shocking. Like, I can't even imagine what happened to his nervous system and his body, you know? Yeah, very joyful teacher. And also, I want to say very much the way he was in person one-on-one is the very much how he is in public. Okay. So we just need to clear what is not ours and what is in our field and what we revoke. And that is the decree. So we stay in our hearts, we stay in our 5D body consciousness, and we revoke what we don't want in the decree. And that frees up our body because our body will, if we give our body permission to release, our body will release, right? Okay, so our bodies always kind of have this field of consciousness. And so when I'm kind of reading or seeing, and people are asking higher self questions like the seer and higher self questions, it's already in their field. So I'm not making things up because it's already there, ready to come forward. And then we just need to name it, and then the body confirms, and then the body releases. Okay. And we're only source aligned. And, I'm very careful with this work. We call in our higher selves and we call in source consciousness, the golden light of source. So, good news. I've been told we have an activation that is available, and it is called an extra code of shielding through the heart. So it looks like plasma. It's like crystal living kind of source golden light. And it works as a field, like a protective energy. So it's called an extra code of shielding. And so we can see more clearly the way things are, not the way that they're presented or we're being told. And it really activates our discernment even more because we know as empaths, as light workers, discernment is essential. And we know as light workers, because our hearts have been absolutely broken many times. Okay, and also gives us laser focus so we can navigate clearly and get through life more efficiently. So it sounds like this: higher self of only source aligned, because we just want to be very careful. So higher self, only source aligned. I would like an extra code of shielding activated now. And then you can do that throughout the day. Like many times. It's not one thing that you ask for once. You can ask for it over and over and over again. Okay. So it's called an extra code of shielding. Whew. So we're always learning. They're always coming in with helpful tips and tricks, So as 3D amplifies, well, source consciousness amplifies. And I know source is always 17 steps ahead. So as soon as we start consistently communicating with our higher self and only source aligned, guides as well that are only source aligned, and we start really clearing out, finding out, who's with us, who's against us, no judgment, we're moving along with or without anybody. Okay. And we really want to emphasize that this is a connection through the heart to source consciousness. Eckhart Tolle's word is divine presence. So here we are. Okay, so this decree is very light because we're doing heavy work and heavy lifting, and then I'm seeing, we also need a break because I know there's people that are doing absolutely every one of the decrees. And they're shifting. So I'm going to quote one of my favorite teachers besides Eckhart Tolle, and his name is Mooji, Mooji, in the heart of God. He lands me straight in my heart. So he lives in Portugal, and in his book, Writing on Paper, Spontaneous utterances and drawings. I love his drawings. So this is the book. This is Mooji. Let me see. And then this is like kind of samples of one of his drawings. Anyways, they're really beautiful. I love this book. So I'm going to quote it. Okay. So this is page 78 of the book. We are the infinite being. In its finite expression. That's the 3D body, right? Finite expression. The feeling, I am, I exist. When I am is recognized as identical with the infinite. Home, right? That's my word. That's not his. All sorrows born of ignorance, right? Like being, the 3D, in the 3D, thinking they're gods and they're asleep, they're barely have any consciousness. They have 1% consciousness. So all sorrows born of ignorance come to an end. This is liberation, is the true purpose of life. And this is what we're doing in the decree. We are liberating ourselves from the karmic loops of do-overs over and over and over and over again. We're looking at things as they are, we're naming them, and then we're releasing them. So we are the finite. Oh my God, that's a Freudian slip. We are the infinite being in its finite expression, the limited 3D body, the feeling, I am, I exist. When I am is recognized as identical with the infinite, all sorrows born of ignorance, right? We don't judge, come to an end. This is liberation, the true purpose of life. Whew. He hits me right in the heart in the best way possible. So Eckhart Tolle, he would say, I am that I am. But recently at his Whistler Peace intensive, it was like a 4-day intensive. So we had 7 sessions with Eckhart, 7 2-hour sessions. In June 2026, he said, it is even more accurate to say, I be. There you go, Eckhart. Okay, so let's connect with our hearts and be with a simple verb, like we're going to do a simple verbiage. Maybe I'm talking too much. A simple verbal guided journey for protection and clearing. Okay, so it's always important to get comfortable, and you can just sit. Okay, and then right away, so we're going to clear. I always clear the antenna with the hair. So we're clearing. Okay, good. So clearing, clearing, clearing. And we can just say yes. Yes, I want the clearing. Yes, 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 yes. Because you don't want to hold on to anything. Except your, loved ones. But even then, we have to surrender. They have their own source connection. But we are the children's protectors. All the children, we are the children's protectors. So connecting to the heart, going into the inner body. It's Eckhart's word. Connecting to our higher selves, connecting to source consciousness. Connecting to our inner child. The inner child is puffed up. So Connecting to our inner child, we're sending unconditional love and source's golden light to all of our younger selves. Those brave younger selves that endured so much by themselves. Good. And so the intention for this, we're going to state our intention that with our higher selves and only source consciousness, we are asking for the deepest healing and clearing available to us right now. And we are grounding and connecting to New Earth, which is 5D consciousness. And then just release the shoulders. Good. Open right up, release the shoulders. And then we're going to breathe in and out. And then breathe in and out. So we're asking for the deepest healing and the deepest clearing, right to the root cause and right to the very first incarnation. I have like a high five on my video from Zoom. I don't know if it will show on the actual footage, but anyways, our higher selves say hi. That's a lot of energy, for them to be able to come into Zoom. So just releasing the shoulders, releasing the base of the neck. Good. And then again, we're clearing. Okay, good. Okay. So I always feel like a lot goes on in my body, so I can feel it. So we're only source aligned, sovereign. Okay, and this space is sealed in source's name. And we're bringing in the golden light of source. And this space is protected in source's name. And we command anything not of pure source consciousness, leave and now. That's it. Be the boss, right? And don't back down. It's like this, if your energy is not benevolent, meaning the highest and best good for all, then leave now. So only beings aligned with source and our highest good may communicate with us. I see 3 and 4D scrambling. I see them losing their minds just by that statement. They love the mind. They love the ego. They are like essentially a gigantic ego. So only beings aligned with source and our highest good may communicate with us. And I command anything not source to leave now. And put your foot down. You're a light worker. You were born to do this. And this is not a teaching, it is a remembering. You're here to remember, and you will remember in the pace that is right for you. So take really good care of yourself in this work. So in this protection and clearing, it was simple. We went in through the heart, connected to our higher selves and source consciousness, into the inner body, connecting to New Earth, basically the heart of source in a 5D body. Well, it's a 3D body that is getting activated from a carbon 3D to a crystalline 5D, and that's what we're releasing. So we need to release the interference and the things that are not for our highest and best good. Good. Take a deep breath in. And we're going to release. Good. Releasing again. And again. So that's how simple a protection and clearing can be, right? But we're getting all of the essentials in there. We're stating our intention. We want the deepest healing and clearing to the root cause, to the very first incarnation. We're connecting through the heart, 5D consciousness, into source consciousness with our higher self. Our higher self is like a pillar of light. And depending on where our higher self home base is, it could be 15D, could be 22D, could be 8D, we don't know. Like some people are discovering that. They're finding out who their higher selves are. And I found out what mine looks like. It's a lot of gold. Okay, so now and actually, that's interesting. It was a lot of gold, but Eckhart said to me, I am literally standing on a chest of gold, because he never gave the answer. I had to find out the answer myself, but I just remembered he said that. And I was like, I don't never have that much money. Like, what's he talking about? But that's my higher self. My higher self literally is like golden with a ton of eyes. Beautiful. Okay, so you will see and discover for yourself. Okay, so we're here as awakening, not adding, we're awakening, revealing, who we truly are. And now we're doing this together. 5D, there's no hierarchy. We are coming together, and light workers are finally, and here we are using technology. We are finally coming together and talking to each other and helping each other. And we do that, okay, all the time. But instead of pouring into the dark triad and, the Draco Reptilians and the Anunnaki and all the siphoning, we are now, not giving our consent. And we are revoking consent, and we're revoking inferred consent, and we're standing in our own authority, minding our own business with our own consciousness, being the boss. So now as we end, another thing I wanted to bring forward is, in terms of energy updates, is to be crystal clear before you go to bed. Interference, 4D interference, 7D interference happens during the sleep time. And also, I guess, 3 and 4D. So 3, 4, and 7D, the insectoid, they come in the 7D, and the Anunnaki come into 4D, and then the Archons or the Draco Reptilians come in 3D. So before you go to bed, state your intention, connect with your heart, and then to your higher self, and then only source aligned, and then source consciousness. And then say out loud, if you can, only those with a benevolent nature, only those with a benevolent nature and only source aligned can be with me in my sleep and dreams. I declare this space is mine in source's name, backed by source. That's a lot of light. My sleep is protected in source's name. So even if you still say that and you still have interference, or if you have bad dreams or things happen that frighten you, the next night, again, affirm again. Do not give up. When we state these things, they have like a temper tantrum. And then we just are consistent, and we do not back down from our sovereignty. Okay, so take really good care of yourself. Tears may come, dreams may come, write in your journal as you wish, but I find that even if I have a dream in the theta brain state, so just before I wake up, if I don't write it down right away, I forget. So just like a hot tip. Practical care, I find that the interference of 3D and 4D, it's like this tech, it's like metal, it's energy work, but it interferes with the nervous system, it interferes with the lymphatic system. And I found that, if you can't have an Epsom salt bath or a salt or sea salt, a foot soak works because the feet are connected right to earth. Okay, so they're like a fast portal. And, try to do it when you're doing the decrees, try to do it nightly just before you go to bed. And also the magnesium and the Epsom salts also helps you relax and then relaxes your nervous system. So the feet are grounding points connecting to earth. And then, soak them for 20 minutes if you can do it. And it helps really release the density from the root and stabilize your crystalline structure because our bodies are moving as light workers, they're moving to crystalline for 5D, with or without us. The shift is happening and the decree work is just we're just helping the body and helping ourselves, so that we don't have that gigantic shock that Eckhart had when he awakened fully, when he was 29 in 77 or something. Okay, so give your body the minerals and energetic support that it needs. Be in nature if you can. Be good to yourself is the most important thing. And remember, this is a revealing. You're not learning new things. This is things that you already know. Use your discernment. Keep what resonates. Leave the rest. Be the boss of this space. That is so important in this work, that you are the boss. Okay? And you can affirm, I release what is not mine and I reclaim what is mine. There's so much thievery on 3D Earth. So if you will subscribe for updates, get notifications for the next YouTube live, and you come and ask questions, come say hi, give feedback. Feedback is welcome. What works, what didn't work, and then just come say hi. I do two lives a week so that when people are going through the decree process, if they have questions that, they don't have to book a session, it's free. They can come and ask questions and I do two YouTube lives a week. So Tuesday and Thursday. Okay. I'm proud of you. This is important work. This is the epitome of self-care. And with this self-care will emerge who you are without interference. And wouldn't that be beautiful to see? Okay, so let's end here. We're sealing this space and this decree in Source's name with the golden light of Source. Take care with gratitude from my heart to yours. Thank you.